C is for Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. And here's the first portable game on my Alphabet Game-a-thon. Castlevania Order of Ecclesia is the third Castlevania game for the DS, and as such plays really similar to the other two, Dawn of Sorrow and Portrait of Ruin. And incidentally plays pretty much exactly like every other 2D Castlevania game ever since Symphony of the Night. Which isn't really surprising. They found something that worked and they went with it. Order of Ecclesia is a 2D action platformer. And more specifically, it's a Metroidvania type of game, which is a game that mixes in the old school Metroid style of exploration with large labyrinthine worlds with Castlevania's action-oriented combat. You play as Shinoa, a member of the Order of Ecclesia, which hilariously translates to Order of the Religious Order. Good job naming your cult, guys. Anyways, the Order of Ecclesia is bent on keeping Dracula from coming back to life, as is the case with most Castlevania games, and they do this by using some spell called Dominus, and then they... I don't know, look, the story's not really important in this game, it's actually kind of bad. It usually is in 2D Castlevania games. The story's not the main focus of the game, it's all about the action. In fact, I had to go to Wikipedia and remind myself what the game's story was actually about. And while the story really isn't noteworthy, the good news is the game is still very good. Like most sequels, Order of Ecclesia does try to do a couple things differently than the previous Castlevania games. The first thing, instead of equipping weaponry like in the other Castlevania games where you'd find a sword, you'd equip it, you'd use it, but in this game, Shinoa can only use glyphs, which are like magical symbols that sometimes appear after defeating enemies. If a glyph does appear after defeating an enemy, Shinoa can absorb it through the tattoo on her back. Oh, so that's what they're for. Huh. Then, after absorbing it, she can now use whatever the ability was that the monster was using. So, if the monster was using a sword, she can use a sword. If it was a fireball, now she can use a fireball. It's a cool idea that mixes in magic and the sword melee fighting, kind of all into one. In other Castlevania games, your sword or your melee weapons were handled differently than your magic. They'd use different meters and point systems. In this, it's kind of the same thing. They're mixed together, so you can go for a complete physical weapon-based character who uses like lances and axes and bows, or they can go all magical and go for like ice and fire and all sorts of different things, or you can mix them together to make a balanced character. The other thing they tried to do really differently with this Castlevania was, instead of one giant labyrinth world where most Castlevania games take place in Dracula's castle, in this one they try to do a lot of different smaller levels. There's like a waterfall, there's a mountain path, there's a few indoor levels like a small castle or a mausoleum or a small church or chapel. And it's a cool idea because you get to see a lot more places than just Dracula's castle, which is a big problem in the other Castlevania games. But at the same time, you're losing a lot of the exploration that the other Castlevania games have because the levels are so much smaller than they were in other games of the series, so you'll lose a lot of that. And because of that, this Castlevania game feels a lot more linear. When you beat a boss, that just marks the end of the level and you go to the next area, while in the other games, you'll see where you're supposed to go, but you can't get there. You need a special ability or a special item of some sort, and then you can come back and go to that area. The biggest problem about this Castlevania game is that it plays way too close to the other games in the series. I mean, Symphony of the Night really changed the way Castlevania worked, and Lord of Shadows for the Xbox 360 and PS3 really changed the way the 3D versions worked. The new one for the 3DS, which I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but Mirrors of Fate looks like it's going to try out a few different things for a 2D Castlevania game, and I think that's really necessary to kind of bring the series back up. But until then, Order of Ecclesia is still really good, and if you haven't played it, but you played other Castlevania games like Portrait of Ruin or Dawn of Sorrow, then I really recommend this one. Or if you played just this one, then I really recommend trying to find some of the other ones.